You're listening to the Running for Distance podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Gilbert, and I'm excited that you're here to journey alongside me today as we lace up the shoes and journey through life, running, and all things in between, each and every week. Now, let's head down the trails and see what's in store in this week's episode. Welcome to Running for Distance. I'm your host, Anthony Gilbert, and today, or this evening, however you want to spin it, I have a guest on with me who actually is coming right off the heels of Rocky Raccoon 100. I mean, this is fun when I'm getting ready to talk to guests literally a day or two right after their race. So it's fresh in their mind, fresh. Their body still feels the pain. Their body is still going through what we would consider those withdrawals and those pains and everything. But would love to introduce y'all to my friend, Laura Kay Eriks. And so welcome to the show, Laura. I appreciate you being on with me.
Thank you.
I have followed you on social media for quite some time, and now we are technically teammates under Coach Cliff Pittman, under Fit to Endure. And so exciting when I saw you join up, and I was like, so cool. And yeah, it was funny how I love throwing stuff in our chat, because I know how Cliff is, and if I can throw something in there where I'm kind of ornery, and he's like, you're just on a static plan, so he's like, so I am technically a grandfathered athlete. He's
Awesome.
he's not technically coaching me, but he's always coaching me one way or the other. So whether it's, having him write up a true training plan or whatever it might be, he's a friend too. So we became really close through my training. And so now he's more like a brother. And so, I'll text him or hit him up on stuff, and he's always more than welcome to, or I'm always more than welcome to text him and vice versa. And so it's a really great relationship. And I know you'll learn to really appreciate him and his input. And, I guess I was his first 100-mile athlete. So it was,
Nice.
I kind of set that tone. And so I hold that dear, because it was a great turnaround for me and success for him. And here's the thing. Many athletes can go out and do it on their own, as we both know, but there's times when you just need a little something extra, right? And to give you that little extra push, or the extra set of eyes, or the extra mindset and the motivation. And that's what he's there for. And, not that I couldn't have done 100 without him, but I wanted to try something different and shift things up and switch it around, and it worked. And so, as we know, being an ultra runner, you have to do that. And
right.
So, Laura, you've been running for a good long while.
I have.
I don't really know a lot about your background. I know I've read a lot of stuff that you've done. So let's jump into what got you started in running in the first place, because we already know that you are crazy because you've gone out and done a 100-miler. We'll get to that in a moment. But what got you passionate about running? Were you a running? Is it something that you enjoyed to begin with, or are you like a lot of my guests where running was punishment and you hated it and you didn't want anything to do with it?
Running was never punishment. I ran in high school. I've been running, shorter distances up until 2009. I had been running like half marathons and marathons. And then I actually got injured in 2009. I tore a hamstring, or a muscle in my leg, and swelled up, and I couldn't run. And so I was rehabbing out on the trail, just walking. And I met some people. They're like, well, you should go do, a 50K if you've done a half or done a marathon. And I didn't even know there was such a thing. And so I got home, looked on the internet, and found the closest and the soonest 50K was out in Kansas City. It was the Psummer 50K. I'm like, that's got to be an easy race.
Nope.
No, so I signed up and went. No trail shoes. I bought a water bottle. I finished last.
Hey,
I hadn't been training. And
everybody has to finish last at some point in their career, right?
That's right. So I had never really run on a trail, but I hiked. Running is different, but I had an awesome time. And the reason I finished last is I did the extra like 3-mile loop a second time because I'm like directionally challenged. But I had a great time. I did that. Those are, I think Psycho Summer is like in July, maybe. And I'm like, I got to do another one. I'm like, if I did a 50K, I should be able to do a 50-miler. So I signed up for the 50-miler in October. That's
Rails
what's the
to
one?
Trails or
The one in Cassaday.
let's see.
Uh,
I should know this because I mean that's my home state and all. Yeah,
so that one. So I signed up for that one. I can't think of the name of it. I'm so sorry.
in October.
Yeah, it has a little. Does it have the little buffalo on the medal?
Yeah. I'm gonna look it up here real quick just so it doesn't bother me because I hate that.
No,
Heartland.
Heartland. Yes.
Yeah, I should
And
know that.
it's such a wonderful. It was a wonderful 50-mile experience. I ran with like a whole group of people the entire time, and like we talked, and I was like, "What?" I'm like, "You talk to each other, and they had chili." And they had beer, and I was like, "Oh, I need to do more ultras." And they're like, "Well, there's like 100-milers." I'm like, "Well, it's got to be twice as fun as a 50."
Yeah.
So I signed up
Absolutely.
for 100 like the next month. Like a couple weeks, I'm like, I'll just sign up for 100. And
so you're signing up for these races with very little training, first of
no
all.
training, just like this was an awesome experience. Twice as long, it's got to be twice as awesome. So I signed up for the Ozark Trail 100. It
Oh my
was the
gosh.
inaugural race in 2009. It did not go well. I did not finish, but I learned a lot. So I think the bonus, anything that you do that is of that magnitude, that takes dedication, it takes training, it takes mental fortitude, it takes physical strength, it takes a lot of aspects of organization with your food and your hydration and your gear and planning that I didn't do. So, I mean, I didn't really deserve to just go out there and finish it because it would have never been the amazing experience that it is now if it came easy. So I didn't finish. I made it to like mile like 46. I timed out. I had been lost, which was fine. I mean, I was devastated. I didn't even know what a DNF was, but I was like, well, I need to train.
Right.
I need to do better. And I know I can do better because I want to finish this now. Because now it wasn't just a cool thing. It was something that, I felt like, my gosh, this is like part of me now. And so I trained and I ran Rocky Raccoon a couple months later in February of 2010 and finished that race in about just over 28 hours or so. And I mean, that was it. It was like something clicked in my brain, and I knew that I would always be running distance, So, but it was amazing. I mean, like the people that you meet. I mean, I have so many friends that I have met at ultras that it's like I only see them maybe once every few years, but they are so dear to me. Like you just have this special bond.
And it's like
I love that part.
you don't see them for such a long time, but when you get back together, it's as if no time has passed, right? And you pick up on the trail right where you left off the last time, and it's a giant family. And I think that's probably one of the things that I love most about the ultra community. Because much like you, Laura, I ran. My favorite race still will probably always be the half marathon, just because that was my first real race, right? 5Ks and 10Ks were one thing, but the half marathon was my first true distance race that I ever ran. And it's like I'm wanting to go back and try another one. Right. But the thing about the ultras though, is there's so much, it's so much different. Like you mentioned, the food, the camaraderie, the experience, whether or not you're trained. And we both have done this because when you're telling me this, it reminds me so much of me a couple of years ago when I went out, like we were just talking a moment ago, my first 100 attempt. I was like, yeah, why not? Oklahoma Outlaw, the inaugural year. So that would have been 3 years ago. you know, they've gotten better since then, but you go out and you run a race that's never happened before, right? That you don't know what to expect. And I said, why not? People I was running next to are well, you know, very experienced ultra runners
Yeah.
that were out there. One of them being Sean Barnes, who has done the Triple Crown, and people like,
Yeah.
you know, Brian Carpenter here in Tulsa, and so many others. And I'm out running with
Right.
them, and they're like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm doing the 100-miler. And they're like, you've never ran one before? And I was like, nope. And it's just that kind of that naive, almost prideful attitude of, I don't have a clue what I'm doing, but I'm just going to go out and experience this.
Yeah.
And while I fell short of finishing, it was a learning opportunity, learning.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I know you can agree on this. You learn so much more from those DNFs than you would ever
Right.
learn from finishing, because you got to have some defeat. And I don't necessarily call it defeat. I just call it a challenge. You just fell short of the distance, but doesn't mean that you fell short altogether. You know, you learn so much, and it's a learning opportunity. And so you have to have that. It wouldn't have done you any good if you would have gone out and finished that first 100 without any training. I mean,
Right.
you've been
I
like,
agree.
sweet.
You know, right. I mean, it builds that fire inside, because, you know, you can be totally trained and totally prepared and have everything, you know, checked in the box. And then, you know, you kick a route and mile 50 or 55, and then you're like, well, I need to adjust my plan, and I'm going to be hiking for the next 45 miles,
And
you know, so.
how does that make you feel, Laura? Because, you know, there's been a few ultras that I ran where, you know, I knew that I had to train to walk, right? It's people think, well, you're supposed to be running, but we both know that most of us are not going to run the entire distance. And so you hunker down and you get ready and you start walking. When I did Pumpkin, you know, I walked about 35 miles, and
Yeah.
it's a long haul. It's a long
It
time.
is.
How do you feel when you're walking? You know, what's going through your mind? How are you feeling? Of course, you know, if you're beat up a little bit and you've kicked roots and, you know, you're banged up a little bit, yeah, you're kind of contemplating, what am I doing, right? But what else is going through your mind?
I mean, you know, I came through 50 in about 11 hours and 20 minutes, which is, you know, that's reasonable for me. I wasn't pushing really hard during the race. I wanted to, you know, keep it, you know, just under control. This was a last minute thing for my birthday.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, I felt like you know, I had, you know, the base miles. I've been, you know, running all year long. I ran, you know, 4,300 miles last year. But I knew, you know, you just have to have that conversation in your head. And I just wanted to have it one time, because I didn't want to play the numbers game all night long, you know, like time, you know, because that is just, it
wears
you know,
on
mentally
you.
it's draining, and it can be you know, just really depleting. So I'm like, okay, 11 hours and 20 minutes, you're halfway done. You know, I kicked the rock a little bit after that. So I'm going to hike 45 miles. I'm like, okay, just keep moving, you know. And I would look at my watch. I'm like, my goal was to be around 18 minutes a mile till I finished. And I mean, really, I mean, I never, you know, Rocky Raccoon is set up so the aid stations are pretty close together. You know, the trail, parts of it are super rooty, part of it, you know, you can hike a little bit faster. You know, I just tried to stay out of my head. You know, I listened to music just for a little bit, maybe for a couple of hours. But really it was just focusing on, well, not kicking any more roots because my foot hurt, and staying warm. I was cold. I had on like everything that I brought, I had on, because I was moving slower, so I was colder. So it was just, I mean, I felt really focused, and I just decided, I'm like, you are going to finish. You have so much time. There's no reason not to finish. You know, I think you got, with the staggered start, I would have had like 31 and a half hours to finish. So,
Plenty
you
of
know,
time.
Plenty of time. It was just keep moving. So it was really hard for me, like around like 4 o'clock in the morning. I was tired, I was super cold, and I just wanted the sun to come up, because, you know, like when the sun comes up, it's like magic. And
Everyone
so
talks about that, right? When the sun comes up, it's like you get this extra that kick. And I know what you're talking about because when I was doing mine, I'd always heard about it, right? And
yeah,
about 4:30 in the morning, I was like, I am not gonna make it. If I can just
right.
see the sunrise, I know that I can make it. And
Agreed.
that sun started to come up, and it was like, ah, there it is. And give me some
No.
coffee, and we're good.
Right. Yep. I had some delicious quesadillas and I had some coffee and the sun started coming up. I mean, it was still cold, but you just feel like all of a sudden, your internal clock in your body's like, okay, it's time to be awake. And then all of a sudden you're walking a little bit faster and, I'm jogging, there's tons of plank bridges there at Rocky. So I'm, jogging across those and, it just, I mean, I had never felt like I wasn't going to finish. I mean, I knew I was going to finish. So, it was my birthday. It was a fun run. It wasn't an A race. My A race is Burning River. That's what Cliff is helping me train for.
Where is Burning River? Where's that
It's
race
in
at?
Ohio,
Okay.
uh, like maybe northern-ish Ohio. It runs along the river, and I'll say the name, but I'm sure I'm butchering it. It's like Kusega River or something. It's called
But,
Burning River because like back in the 70s or 60s, the river was so polluted it actually caught on fire.
mm,
And then they redid like cleaned everything up and then built this trail. The course is, I think it's different than what it used to be. I think it used to be a point to point, but now I think it's like a figure eight or something like that. And it's a really nice mix for me. It's not all single track. There's some gravel, there's some like pedestrian trails, there's a little bit of road.
I
I
think
like
that
that mix.
I think that makes a difference, especially for me, because you start to run the same thing over and over, and it really gets repetitious. And I know some people love it, but for
They
me
do.
personally, you mix in some concrete, some single track,
Yep.
a little sand, whatever it might be. You start mixing
Yep.
up I think that mixes it up and gets your mind off of things because you don't know what's coming next. But if you get on a long, like at Cassidy with Heartland, the long not winding, the long, just the Flint Hills or something else, right? So you got these long
Right.
hills. And it was just like, it's very similar to what I ran at the Boonville back roads, these
Oh yeah,
long
that's right.
hills, and they just go
Yeah.
forever, right? And that just really starts to eat at you. But if you can mix it
Hmm.
up and you get some grass and you get some trail and you get a little bit of this and a little bit of that, it changes
Yeah.
things and you start to feel better. Which do you prefer to have a point to point or loops, or what would you prefer to do if you because I don't really know how Rocky's laid out. I know from talking with Justin how he kind of
Mhm.
described how it was laid out. Um, but which do you prefer?
Um, I think that I like an out and back. I think that's my favorite. And then point to point, or some sort of like big like lollipop loop. I don't like just doing loops. Rocky Raccoon is a loop. It's not that I hate it. It's just not my favorite. I did Black Hills 100 the first year. It could have been like 2000. I don't know, 16 or 17. No, maybe it was before then. I can't remember. But whatever was the first year. And I think it's still an out and back. And that was one of my favorite races. It's like, it's long. It's like 52
Hmm.
out, so it ends up being 104 and you finish on the track. It's the same weekend as Western States. And so they sort of mimic that. Um, I like to talk about that race. It stormed really bad. They had like hail and well, first it started with like this heat wave and then the storms moved in. We had hail and high winds and pouring down rain all night. And I was not having like a stellar race. I actually slept on the trail for like 45 minutes in the middle of the night and just laid there and let the rain fall on me. And I was way in the back, like almost last, almost. And as I'm coming, finally, the sun's up and I'm running across, the grass, hills and running past the buffalo into town. You get on the Centennial Trail there, and somebody in a walkie-talkie, it's like, over second females almost to the track. And I stopped and I looked at him. I'm like, I am not the second female. He's like, yes, you are. I'm like, no, I'm not.
There's no way.
And so I ended up being the second female because so many people had dropped. I think only like 33% of the field finished that year.
Wow.
So that's my, my glory, I got second place. So,
I mean, and that's the thing about ultras, is like, you don't know what kind of race you're going to have. You don't know what kind of race the other people are going to have, right? You've got some of these races that they might be elite runners and they go out and blaze a glory, right? Because it's all or nothing, and they end up dropping out, right? Or, if the conditions are not favorable to where, I'm not one to, I don't like to run in the heat. I shrivel up and I am crap. I prefer the cooler temperatures. And so that's why I did so well at Pumpkin, is because the temperatures cooled off and I was in my element. If you start talking, 80s or 90s, I'm going to be one of those probably that are going to tap out because I'm not going to be able to hang. I run hot, and so my body starts to go against me. But anything can happen. You
agree.
You roll an ankle, or you tweak something, or something just goes, and you find yourself in a position to finish in a favorable spot. You never know. That's why you don't quit, because if at all possible, right?
Right. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I mean, I think, like after I started running ultras, and Logan, my son, he started doing ultras when he was 9. And so,
Wow.
I always tell him he walks. So I'm like, just keep going and you'll finish. I said, the time and the miles will take care of themselves and you'll get to the finish line. And, he's strong-minded that way. Of course, my husband, Mike, he, is a excellent ultra runner too. And so, we, all have our own races and do our own things, but I think we all had that same, mental,
drive.
capacity. God forbid one of us gets sick because they're like, you're fine, or you twist an ankle and be like, walk it off.
Suck it up. Oh,
suck it up. You'll be fine.
So I was going to ask you, what's it like to, be, because a lot of people, don't, like my wife, she doesn't run, so, there's kind of a balance. She's not a runner. I'm this crazy person that likes to go out and run distances or do things that I probably shouldn't do, and she doesn't like me doing. But you've got a son that goes and does ultras. You have a husband that run ultras. So I know that there is a different mantra, different chemistry in the household, right? To where you, like you mentioned, suck it up, right? It's like, you're not sick, just get out there and run. So does it get pretty competitive between you guys? Or is it you guys kind of respect each other's differences?
I think so. I mean, once in a while it's competitive, but usually not. I mean, Mike he's fast. Like if he wants to go do like some speed work or a fast run, usually, it is difficult for me to keep up. And that was one of the reasons, Cliff is coaching me now, because I want to be faster, and I felt like I was going out and running every day, and, some weeks, it's like I'm running 80 or 90 miles, but none of those miles had a purpose except to keep me happy. I want to run because I enjoy it. But, having a purpose for some of those runs, and having interval work and having short days and having long days and, building up to that, it's going to get me to where I want to be so I can be faster. And not because I want to compete with Mike. Mike has his own races. He does a lot of his own, he has his that he likes and his style of racing he likes. And he's getting ready to do a double Ironman here next month. and he's been training for that. And we have a timed race next month. Mike and Logan are doing a 12-hour. I'm gonna do the 24. So I mean, we all have our own, plan of what we're racing, and our own, his job and my job, whether he's working late or I'm working late or early, his training, we run together, sometimes, but not very often. And, Logan, he's just in it for whatever. If we sign Logan up for a 24-hour or a 72-hour or a half marathon, he's like, okay, so he doesn't care.
He knows he's going to have to do it one way or the other, right? Whether mom or dad's going to do it, he's going to have to do it. But
he's going. Yep, we're all. We got last year we were supposed to do the dome, 24 hours at the dome, and we got rolled over because of COVID. So I guess we got the word that the dome is going to happen. That's the race in. I don't even know what state it's in. Michigan or Wisconsin. Oh, you'll have to look it up. But it's the one that runs around the track inside.
Yeah.
There's also a 6-day and a 72-hour and a 48-hour.
Let's see here. The dome.
I don't remember.
There's so many Here's the thing: is like there's so many races nowadays. It's like you've got your epic ones like Western States and all of those that everybody knows what those are. But then you start having other ones come up. It's like, huh? So you've got 6 days in the dome in Milwaukee.
In Milwaukee. So yeah, we're all doing the 24-hour on Saturday.
August 20th. Let's see. It's August. This year it's July 24th.
22nd. It's not. I don't. Is that what it is?
6-day race that takes place from the 22nd to the 31st of July. 6 days in the dome. So they have multiple loop course. So they got the 24-hour, they have the 48-hour, they have the 144-hour. Is that it?
I think so. So I don't know if the dates changed or not, but they rolled us over. So it's like a third of a mile track, and then they play hockey in the center of it, and you run around.
Cool. That's cool. That makes me think of when I did the Bad Dog 50 back in November. I had finished, but about an hour and a half after I got done running, I got back to the hotel, and then tornado sirens went off, right? And there was a tornado that was in the area. And that's up in Dixon, Missouri. So the northern part of Missouri, right? North central, I guess you would say. And there were still people out on the course, right? And so there were some friends of mine that were taking video and were posting it, and they ended up going indoors into the gymnasium and running the remainder of their.
That's right.
Yes. And I was like, are you kidding me? They're running laps around the gym. I was like, now that would make me feel like punishment, because that's what we used to have to do in school. And I hated running around the gym lap after lap. And there was people that ended up doing 50 miles worth in the gym because the weather was so bad. They finished their 100 in the gymnasium. And I'm like,
Wow, that's right. I didn't know anyone personally that did it, but I know I read that, like on one of my, the feed on Facebook, because 99% of the people on my Facebook page are runners. But yeah, that was crazy. I mean, talk about like mental strength, that's awesome.
That's the thing. It's like, ultras, like we said, you never know what you're going to get. Well, this one, you do know what you're going to get because you've already signed up for it. You already know that it's going to be laps around and round and round and round. But, whether it's extreme cold, extreme heat, you've got, who knows, you got hail, you've got frogs and toads and locusts and whatever other elements that might pop up. If the weather's not extreme, it's probably not an ultra. Now, there are times where the stars align just right and you get good weather, which I have had that. But most of the time, it's epic conditions, which makes an ultra, I think, even that much more
Yeah.
better than any other race that there is, because, you know, you go out and run a half marathon or a marathon or something of that distance. Most of the time, the race director is probably going to call the race, or, you know, you're just going to delay the race, or something's going to happen.
Mhm.
But as we both know, especially on the trails, you're on your own,
Yep.
and you know, you go out and you do it. Now, if there's lightning, they probably will delay, but if the water's going to rise like it did at what was it, White Rock, a couple years ago, where they had the water crossing and water is rushing and it's like waist deep for people, and
Yep.
things that are crazy like that. But here's the thing, those are the things that make those races memorable and epic, and you want to be a part of that, because it's like, I was
Yeah.
there, I did that. And
Yeah.
who wants a boring, perfect race as far as the
Right.
conditions go? As far as, I can go out and run down the road every single day when the weather's perfect and it's just training mileage. But when you're running a race, you want it to be something that you remember. And I think that's probably why DNFs stick so much for me, because it was epic and it was tough, and I learned from
Yeah.
it and I remember it, and it resonates with you, and you can recall that stuff when you're like, when you're at Rocky last weekend. I'm sure you probably had moments that came up of when you were doing the Ozark where you were struggling and you
Mhm.
were not feeling good. And you start to use those memories to say, you know what? I can do this. I
You
can
can do
push
this.
through
Yeah.
this. I've been here before. Um, and you've been on that course before. So you know what that course was like. Um,
Yeah.
and I know I hear it's a great course for ultra runners. That's just one I've not done, but I
Yeah.
probably should do it, um, just
Yeah.
because
It's a nice course. I mean, there's a lot of routes out there. I mean,
that get covered up
you
by the
know,
pine needles, right?
well, you can see them like there was a girl, she posted, I can't remember her name. Someone asked about the course and she's like, well, the first loop, it's almost flat, it's very smooth, it's a great loop. She's like, the fifth loop is very mountainous. There's roots everywhere, It's
The
like,
fifth loop. You know, they say that
yeah,
like every loop, you know, and I'm like you, I think I prefer the out and back versus the
yeah,
looped, because the loop starts to wear on you mentally. And it's like, you know, at
yeah.
Pumpkin, we had 3 long loops. The first loop,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
the first loop, the hills were decent. The second loop, those hills sucked. The third loop was like, where did those come from? Right. Because they were like at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, those things were monsters. And I'm like, where did that come from? And it's just because, you know, you're fatigued and tired and you're wearing down, and every loop gets worse technically, because your
Yeah.
body's worn down and you're tired mentally and physically and everything else. Um, but yeah, so much epicness. You know, unfortunately, you know, like I was telling you, my friend Justin, if you're listening or watching, I'm sorry you didn't make it, my friend. You will get the next one. He's been to Rocky twice, and you know, he hit one of those roots that you talked about and
Yeah.
tweaked his ankle and crashed and tweaked his back, and he couldn't make it the rest of the
Yeah.
way. And so that happens, right? And then you've got
It
epic
does.
stories like David, David Terrio. David, you were a beast, sir. And he went down and ran on a twisted, banged up ankle at Loop Guru in Louisiana several years ago, and probably should have pulled himself out of the race, but he went and ran it anyways. And that's the thing. It's like when you're running ultras, sometimes you don't know what you're going to do. You know, I
Right.
talk to people and I'm like, man, I would have pulled myself out. But when you're in that moment, you
Yeah.
do things differently. See, like you ran Ozark and I ran the full moon 50K a
Mm-hmm.
year ago in July.
Arkansas.
And Cliff had been training me for that race. It was just a
Yeah.
training race.
Mhm.
It was 99 degrees at start time. Okay. And it was 9 o'clock at night. And they run a lot of the Ozark course for that
Mhm.
race. And I got so sick and I had to pull myself out of the race because I've never been so sick. But I had friends who were like, come on, you can do this. You can do this. And I was like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I said, it's like a family. You want to try to get everybody across the finish line, but sometimes you've got to listen to your body. Sometimes you've got to stop. And that's hard because you don't know what you're going to do. Sometimes you're going to keep on pushing. And sometimes you're like, no, it's not in the cards today. I've got to tap out.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are listening or watching, there is no shame in dropping out of a race. Don't ever feel like you're not worthy or you're a loser or that, because here's the thing, we will all run another day and you got to listen to your body. That's first and foremost. You always have to listen to your body. You don't know what's
Yep.
going on. There's people that I know and you probably know as well that have gotten rabo, which is a very
Yep.
serious thing. And there are people like one of my last guests back in December, um, Lauren. She's from Tennessee, and she ended up very sick this last year during a race, and she didn't know what was going on, and she had a touch of rabo, and so it's like
Yeah.
you gotta just listen to your body, and yeah,
Yeah.
if you tweak an ankle, I'm stubborn. I'll probably run on it like I did at my race 2 weeks ago, but
You do. You have to pick your battles. I mean, you have to decide, it's like, well, it's like, okay, this, my toe is, it's probably, I'm sure it's not broken. I mean, it hurts, but, I figured, I'm like, I had time. I went down to Texas, I'm going to hike in the woods and have a good birthday. I mean,
absolutely, you
so
made it the
yeah,
best. Absolutely.
and there's
Um,
other, I've probably, finished races, by the grace of God, just getting to the finish line and maybe I should have dropped. And there's races that, you know, maybe somebody should have been there and been like, hey, you can do this and you can finish, and I quit. Most of my races, I don't have crew and I don't have pacers. Once in a while I get lucky enough and, Mike will be able to come and, crew me or pace me, but it's hard because we're both doing our own races. Um,
sure.
but I mean, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I went out and uh, signed up for that 888K in 2015. I went out there to Vermont to do the 551 miles, and that was pretty epic. Obviously, I didn't get 551 miles; only a few people have. But
You still
being out
went
there
out and did it.
for 10 days, I got to see bear were out there. I got to see moose. I got to run 354 miles. Um, and
Yeah,
the cool
that's
thing is, there was only 10 of us that started. So for a week, there was 10 of us on this course. And so you were just out there, no aid out on the course, just you would do the loop. You do like a 20-mile loop and then get back to the barn where you had your setup and then do the 7-mile loop. And it was so cool. I need to go back out there. That's just kind of lingering, maybe to finish or maybe just to try again, whatever it comes out to be. Um,
I was gonna
but
say
it's a pretty epic challenge.
ask you, what is one of those races that's out there that you absolutely would love to do that you've not done yet?
That I've not done yet. Um, I don't know. There's so many new cool races. Um, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to do uh like maybe like Orca Island, that one. I think there's one out there, like out in Washington. Somebody just sent me a link to a race. It's like Falklands Island, um, like down in the South Atlantic. It runs like on an island and there's like penguins and things like that. And it's like, there's no trees on there. It's just running on this island. And you know, maybe one day do that. There are just so many epic things out there. Um, I don't know. It's like it's like you're a kid in a candy store. There's like
Hmm.
all this candy, and then all this new candy comes in, and it's so hard to decide what you want to do next. I think like last year I did No Business 100, and that was one of the most beautiful races I've ever done. Um, I'd like to go back and do that race again because they do it in opposite directions. It's a
Hmm.
giant loop. Maybe in a couple of years I'll go back um, and try to do that one.
Yeah, I know
I
there's
don't know.
races
There's some
like
races.
like Moab 240 and things like that, that, beautiful, beautiful scenery.
Yeah, that would be that one, Tahoe 200. I would like to do that. There's a new one that uh, what's the one in Arizona now?
The rim to rim
Cocodona,
or yeah,
Cocodona 250. I was looking at that one. I just, can't do that this year, but it's the inaugural race this year, so um, I can't wait to hear about it. But that would be something that I would be interested in. The 250 out there. So I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think the more that I race, because this is year 11 of ultras. I think I'm getting a little more picky about what I want to do. Because who
no,
knows, it's like I hope I can keep doing ultras until I'm, 80 or 90 years old. But at some
sure.
point, you know, so I may have to come back down and do Arkansas Traveler this year. It'll be my 6th finish down there if I can get down there, and maybe Cliff will come down and say hi. He lives somewhere down there in that
He does
neck of the
not
woods,
live
I
too
think.
far from that area at all.
Yeah.
No. Um,
So,
so, being how that you've done 11 years now of ultras, you're like
mhm,
you said, you're starting to get a little more picky. And I think we all get that way as we progress in our training age, right? You want to do things, you start to develop a method to your madness, right?
mhm.
You want to go out and do specific things. How far out do you normally? I know Rocky was a surprise. It was just
It was.
spur of the moment. I want to go out and do this for my birthday, and we all
Right.
get that wild itch, and can kind of like the bad dog. Like I said, I wasn't planning on running that race. It was just something that came up. I said that sounds cool. Let's go do it. And you get those, right? But how far out do you normally plan for your races? Do you kind of, do you already have stuff that's laid out for the next year, or you just kind of take stuff at the beginning of the year and you start to piece things together through the course of the year? And of course, you've got Mike's schedule and your schedule and Logan's school schedule and everything that's mixed
Mhm.
in there. How do you all kind of plan for that?
We sort of have an idea. We talk about what races we're going to do. This year is a weird year because we have a couple races that rolled over because of the COVID. Um, so that timed race next month is a rollover, and then so I have. But to digress, I signed up for my A race, which is Burning River, and so that'll be in the late summer. That's what Cliff is helping me get to for my time goal, and to be prepared, to be prepared for everything out there, and to, hopefully hit the goal that I want to. Um, Once I get past that race, um, then right now things are kind of open. I'll probably do Tunnel Hill, either the 50 or the 100. If I need 50 miles to get the 500-mile buckle there, so I'm sure I'll line up for something because Steve Durbin is evil and made a 500-mile buckle.
And those are the types of
So
things that, ultra runners love, because I know that, Kathy here in Tulsa, she has run Pumpkin now 10 times at least. And, there's like 1,000-mile jacket, or I forget what all,
right.
just crazy stuff like that, to where you get these rewards, or I guess you could call it a reward or an
It
award,
is.
to recognize things that you normally it is to separate you from the normal people that just go and sign up a race and just do it one time, right? It keeps you coming back. And the fact that you've
Yeah.
ran it 4 times ish already, you've
Yeah.
got something that's sitting in the wings of, hey, if I do it again, I'll get this. And it's
Right.
just gives you one extra little bit of oomph to consider that race, because it's like, hey, why not? Right?
Right.
Because not everybody would have that. And that's just an extra bit of swag to put in your with your all your awards.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, Logan wants to do the 50 again. He did the 50 not last year, but the year before. He walked it, and it was cold that year, and I think he finished in like around like 19 hours. for walking the 50 at Tunnel Hill. So he wants to go back and hopefully, run more of it. He has, if anything, he has the mental strength of an ultra runner, just
Especially at such a young age.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's 15 now. He started doing ultras. He did Pumpkin Holler. That was his first ultra. He did the 50K there.
Okay.
So
Mad
I don't
respect
know.
for him on that one. That was my
So
first
yeah,
50K. So it's a great
yeah,
course for a 50K,
it
especially
is.
for a youth. I mean, it's not too hard. I mean, it's just right.
I felt like a bad mom though. I'm like, make sure you follow the markers. Don't get in anybody's car. Make sure you eat at the aid station. Because I ran the
Yes.
50K. And then when I finished, I think Eldon,
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. Somebody drove me to the last aid station, and then I ran out to him, and then walked like the last 10 miles with Logan or whatever. But that was a good day, and you appreciate that races allow that. Like Kathy she was a race director then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Her and Brian, and that they are welcoming to that, that I can bring Logan and he can walk it, and it's okay.
Yeah, because
It's
there's a
just
lot of races that won't let you do that type of thing.
right. I mean, it's just a family environment. The race, Mike and I put on Arrowhead, we are welcoming, we put on a family event on purpose, because we're a family, and, we want that, we want people to feel like you can camp here and you can have your kids walk a lap with you, or you can sign your kids up, and they can get a medal. Everyone is welcome, whether you want to walk one lap or if you are going to win or whatever.
I remember when you guys announced the first year of Arrowhead, and I was like, man, that sounds like such a cool race. I want to go and do it. I still want to come up and do that race. Just because
it's hard. I know October's busy. I know.
Well, I know it is. And it's like, like for me, soccer season, and it's like,
Right.
I've got to pick and choose. I've got to be picky and choosy on my races, but I'm going to say I'm going to make it up there at some point to come and run that course. I definitely want to do that.
Well, we'll let you do the 100.
You hear that, Cliff? I'm not even training for 100. So, I wanted to ask you, Laura, what is one of the workouts that you love the most? And Cliff, cover your ears, okay? If you're listening, but what is one of your go-to workouts? Because some people love things like hill repeats or things like that. What's one workout that you absolutely just love to have on a regular basis?
As my training is evolving, I mean, I always like the long run. I mean, that is my favorite. Cliff, it was like, I felt like, it was like the perfect response. He's like, go do a 5-hour run and have fun. And I was like, well, hell yes, I'm gonna have fun. I'm like,
let's go.
I mean, and it's like, run, your comfortable pace. It wasn't, which he sets up that pace, which is totally in my comfort zone, to keep that pace the entire time. And it's just, that is my favorite. Though now I'm getting, once I'm recovered again, I'll get back to that interval work, and which is new to me. I have never done that. It's like warm up and then run, eights, or more, faster, and then, recover and then run eights again. And, I like it because it challenges me, because, actually I was nervous about it. I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? I did the first few runs on the treadmill because I was like, trying to figure out how I'm going to keep pace and, look at my watch and stuff. But it's fun because it's almost like racing, because I feel like I have to be so focused. The long run is just like you just turn on your music or turn it off and just zone out and just, run until you're done. But the interval work, it's it's different to me, but I like it. And I can already feel, like the benefit from that. It's like he wanted me to run like a 10.5 minute pace after doing interval work, the next day. And I'm like, hold back, hold back, hold back, because I know he's going to see what I did, so,
Yes.
you know, it, it, it's new and it's fun. Maybe months from now, I'm going to be, writing him, leaving him hate mail, after my workouts,
He loves it. He
but,
loves it. Absolutely.
yeah, yep. The interval work, I really like, I like it. And I really like the long run. I mean, anytime I can get out and do miles is a blessing. I'm like, there are no bad miles. Um,
Yeah,
I
that's
think,
well, depends
uh,
on depends on how you feel that particular day, right? There's those
right.
miles that you get that it's like, you know what, these are just gonna be training miles, and I'm just gonna get them done,
Yeah.
and you don't
Yeah.
necessarily love them. It's like, okay, whatever, I get them done. But then there's the ones like, where you go out and you do that 5 hour run, and you're just like, I'm just gonna go and run all day.
Yeah.
And you love those moments because then you can relax and you can just, dial it in and get in that zone and just go. Um, and it took me a while to get used to those 3, 4, 5 hour runs back to back
Hmm.
on the weekends. And it's like,
Yeah.
Cliff, what are you doing to me, dude? And and he's like, I want you to run slow. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay. I said, I feel like what you want me to run slow is walking. And he's like, but then walk. And I was like, but that's not running. And so, it was like I had to shift my philosophy and my mindset, right? Because it's like, he knew what was best and he's training me to run 100, right? Because you have to settle into that walking time at one point. And I was like, but I want to go run. He's
Yeah.
like, well, you have to learn to walk too. And it's like, okay. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a love-hate relationship, and I would give him crap and tell him how I felt, and I can't stand you right now, but I know it's best for me, and we'd banter
Yeah.
back and forth, and it's all good. But so when you're out running your 5 hour runs,
Hmm.
or a long run, what are some of the
Yeah.
things that you use to fuel with, Laura?
Um, I mean, I feel like I can eat, a lot of different foods, but for the most part, I mean, I drink Tailwind. I really, that's my go-to. Um, I use Dan's bars, Dan is one of the people that live here in Southern Illinois, and he makes protein bars,
Okay.
and they're amazing. I
Are they
use
different, like a variety of different flavors, or is it
a
just
variety of different
okay?
flavors, and I get his Star Bar. It's like chocolate and honey and cranberries and a little bit of peanut butter and then protein powder. They're delicious and they're small and they have a lot of good calories in them. So I brought those to Rocky and I ate every single one I brought to Rocky. I like Luna bars. The blueberry, like a blueberry lemon mix bar, the protein bar. Buy them anywhere, and I really like those. Pop Tarts, definitely go
Yes.
to cherry Pop Tarts, cinnamon and brown sugar, and then strawberry and blueberry kind of third place. But that's usually what I run on. I think that like anything, like if I'm going to, and then I use a V Fuel, which was nice because
Hmm.
Rocky had V Fuel there. And so they had tons of gels that I like. Uh, So they had the Mountain Berry, which is like their very best flavor, and that was at every
Yes.
single aid station. So um, I probably had it 15 gels, 10 gels at Rocky, and I'll bring those too because I feel like if it's really hot or I'm just not hungry at all, I can eat a gel and I feel like I'm taking care of myself. Like I'm bringing in the calories that I need, and so and I'll bring some chewable salt tabs just in case, if it's really long or if it's warm outside. And that gets me through. If it's an ultra, if it's like more than 50, less than 50, that's my fuel. I don't need anything more. If it's more than 50, then, I'll rely on like anything at the aid station, broth or ramen, uh, quesadilla, grilled cheese, things like that, pizza,
Yes.
anything. Yeah, chips, so I mean, and I know, I think there is definitely room in my world to improve on like what I eat, but like in an ultra, like in the middle of the night, if this sounds good and you can eat it,
Go
then
for it.
eat it.
Yep.
Like I always said I had the quesadillas and I ate one and I took one with me for my pocket quesadilla because I always, if they have quesadillas, I put one in each pocket and then I'll eat them while I'm running. And so I always have pocket quesadillas and, you know, they're cold, but it's cheese and bread, it's good. So, it keeps you going. So like at Rocky, I think that was one of the main things that just kept me hiking is I ate a lot of food all along the way. Cause I mean, if you're depleted, then you're not going to
Yeah,
make it.
if you get behind in your caloric intake, you're going to struggle. And not to say you can't finish, but it's going to be a real hard challenge. And I know
Right.
that's one of the things that Cliff emphasizes, right? Is make sure you're drinking plenty and make sure you're taking plenty of calories. And it's like, and
Yep.
he's like, sometimes if you're going to eat, you need to just keep eating. And
Yeah.
that's the one thing I think I love most about ultras is eating, because they have
Me too.
a smorgasbord of options, and it's like every aid station has something different. One
Yeah.
might be, at Pumpkin we had chicken noodle soup with big chunks of
Yeah.
chicken, and that was a saving grace. But then we had the potato soup, and that I didn't think I was going to like it, but I started eating it, and that really gave me the just that
Mm-hmm.
extra boost, because you've got the starches and everything that's in there, and it's like it
The
gave me
salt.
energy,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, but then there's years where I've ran where it was like, what was it, peanut, oh, what was it, banana and peanut butter quesadillas, things like that.
Really?
Oh, just crazy combinations.
Nice.
Waffles.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, waffles. When
Waffles are the bomb.
waffles and bacon, when I came up on that aid station at Pumpkin and I saw waffles and bacon, my eyes got so big and I was like, are you
Oh,
kidding me? And nothing like
thank you.
bacon. Bacon is it's salty,
It's
it's
salty.
full of protein, it's just fats, and it's like, it's great stuff. And I was like, man, I love this. And it's like, my old self, I'm like, eating bacon while I'm running, I'm gonna puke. No, because I'm not
Right.
going fast, because you're going slow enough you can eat it,
Oh yeah.
digest it, and you're good. And so you take food with you and you keep
Yeah.
moving. That's the thing. So the pocket quesadilla, I love it. That's awesome. And
Thank you.
I always end up putting stuff in my pockets, and sometimes I'll forget about it. And I was like, oh, I forgot I had that in there. And
It is.
chocolate's another one that I really love, but it
I do too.
always tends to melt. And if I don't eat it, gummy bears is another one that I just absolutely just, I don't know, just something sweet, something easy to chew on and sugary, right? And gives you just that little extra kick. Um, there's a lot of stuff out there, guys, if you're listening, that
Yeah, you just have to find what works. I mean, and even if like whatever sounded good, like at Rocky, because it was cold at night, it might not sound good at Burning River. I mean, I had trail mix. It had craisins, dark chocolate, almonds, peanuts, and pumpkin seeds, and maybe some sunflower seeds. And I had a whole Ziploc bag of that, and I, chewed on that, all along the course, but the temperature, weather
Mhm.
plays a huge,
You-
it's a huge player. I ran the Katy Trail 50K or no 50 miler last year, and I drank Tailwind and had gels, and that was it because it was like it was hot. I don't know what it got up to. I think to the 90s almost, and there's a lot of places where there is no shade, and I was trying to get a PR, which I did, and this year, hopefully with uh, Cliff's help and God willing, I can, reach my time goal for that again. But what, effort plays a huge,
sure.
is a huge player in what you're eating. Obviously I'm not eating tons of Pringles if I'm pushing really hard. At the 50 miler, I was just, gels was probably about all I could stomach. It was hot, and I was, probably right there at the threshold of, where I could, be at.
Sure.
But it's good. I mean, I'm learning more about my training and looking at my heart rate and pace and things like that. So we'll see how things land. Like I said, hopefully Burning River goes well and get in a few races after that.
Do you have anything on the schedule before then? Or is it just between now and then it's all training?
No, well, I do. I have the 24-hour in March, and then I had signed up for the 100 at Potawatomi, but I have to make sure that everything is in check before I head out to Potawatomi, because that's going to be technical. And then I have a marathon in May, and then the Dome, 24 hours at the Dome. And it seems like I have something else.
You've got quite a bit on the schedule there, so
Oh, yeah. And then Burning River, which is in July, and then probably a 50 miler in September, and probably a 100 miler in October, and probably a 100 miler in November. And then Arrowhead will keep me busy in October. But it just depends. I'm going to go and crew Mike for his double Ironman in March. It's down in Florida. So we're all going to go and crew him and enjoy some Florida weather, which would be nice. And then I'm not sure what else Mike has I think he's going to do Tunnel Hill 100. Logan will do the 50, and I'll do either the 50 or the 100. So we'll all be there. Other than that, there's no telling where we'll land.
We know you. Here's the thing is regardless of where you're at, you guys will be running one way or the other, and you'll be getting the miles in. And so that's
right. It doesn't matter. We enjoy it, you know how it is, like you're at mile 70 of an ultra and you're like, I'm just going to do 5Ks and I'm going to take up knitting. So this is crazy.
I'm done. I'm never running an ultra again.
Never running another ultra.
I've said that. I'm never. And then as soon as you get home, what are you doing? You're pulling up ultra sign up to see when the next one is. It's a vicious cycle, but we love it. We're sick and sadistic. With as many miles, and last question for you, Laura, before I let you go, because I know you got an early rise in the morning. What with as many miles as you run way more than I have. So hats off to you on that one. But what kind of shoes do you normally wear?
My road shoes, I run in Mizuno's. I run either in like the Wave Rider or the Sky 2. They're both a cushion kind of stability shoe. They have a wider toe box. The Sky 2s are their newer model. I really like them. They work well for me. I've been running in Mizuno's for probably 10 years. I'm going to have to try to find a new trail shoe. I've been running in the Mountain Masochists. They're made by Columbia, and they just don't really make them anymore, or they're different. And so I am in search of a new trail shoe. It has to have a wide toe box. Well, other than that, I don't know. I know a lot of people run in ultras and Hokas and all those, and I would think that would be a work in progress for me to go from down to the.
It is. I've ran in them, and it took some adjustment. You might try. Most of the shoes that I've worn are the Topo, because of the wide toe box. That's kind of why the narrow toe box just doesn't work for me. And I've got the Mizuno Wave Runners, and I love those shoes. I've got my second pair, but the Topo. So they've got the Terra Venture, and then also I want to say it's the Trail Venture. I forget what the newer model is, but those trail shoes, I'd have to say, are one of my favorite trail shoes. They've, I've ran all my hundreds in them, and all of the
Really?
trail
Okay.
races in them. They've got the good soft cushion. You got the white toe box, and so and they're rugged, and that's one of the things that I like about them is just the ability to take a beating. I still remember the first time I wore them. I went out and ran a 10-miler on the trails, and it was like they felt like a glove, right? It was like, okay,
Really?
I'm sold on these, and I wore
Nice.
them. I wore them at Outlaw, and I wore them at Pumpkin, and I'm gonna have to get me another pair because one of my toes likes to. It's got a mind of its own, right? And it's the ones that
Yeah.
always get the black and the purple toenails.
Right. Right.
It's poked a hole through the mesh at the top. And so now I've got two pairs of these shoes that have a hole through the mesh at the top, but
Oh,
it's all good. It's like, okay, it's time for a new pair. I've put plenty of miles on these, but yeah, I definitely, ultras, they're zero dropping. You got to get used to them, but the topo, you could definitely find something that's like a 5 millimeter or an 8 millimeter drop that probably
yeah.
would do you well. I've even
I'll
wore
have
the
to look into those.
I've even worn the Brooks Cascadias, which they're not as wide of a toe box, but they've done me decent. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, there's some options out there. You just gotta find one that fits
Yeah.
and feels good. So
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would be remiss if I didn't, say that, like my pack that I wore for Rocky did really good for me. It was Orange Mud pack. I feel like I
you are
have
part of the
to.
Orange Mud team, so
I
that
am more
is
part of the Orange Mud team. I wear my Orange Mud visor at all times because it's my favorite visor, and the pack does me well. I carry bottles. I'm not a bladder kind of girl, so
yeah, I'm
um,
the same way. Bottles,
I
I prefer
I have
bottles
to
over
have
the
my
bladder.
stuff. Yep, all up front, and I just keep extra stuff in the back, and it gets me there. And now I get to be part of the Henri Mule racing team too with Michelle Hardwig. She brought me onto her team, which is a blessing.
Very
She's an
cool.
amazing race director and human being. And so, I mean, I'm looking forward to like a really good year of just being out on the trail or out on the road and just being part of the community. And, hopefully we can race together, just have races happen,
That's the thing.
or
It's
just get
just
together.
being able to get out and run and be with your friends, right? That's
Right.
the thing is regardless if we can race, if we can get out and run, that's one thing. Racing is just icing on the cake. And
It
so,
is.
yeah, I hope it all works out for you, Laura, because I love to see you guys go out and do some awesome, crazy stuff, and you got to cheer your
Yeah.
teammates on, and
Well,
I always like to live vicariously through my friends, and because there's certain things that I probably won't get to do, but I'll get to do them with you all in spirit. So, but I really appreciate you jumping on with me tonight. It was a
for
pleasure to
having
get
me.
to chat with you and learn a
Yep.
little bit more about you and your passion of ultra running. And
Yep.
you're not just an ultra runner. You're a mom. You're a wife. You're a race director. You're nuclear medicine background, which is cool. And we didn't even get a chance to
Thanks.
talk about all that awesome stuff, but it's very cool. And I wish you the best coming up on your events. And of course, I'll talk to you online. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I really appreciate you jumping on with me, and it was great to have you on. And so, as I tell everybody, we will see you down the trail, and stay safe and stay warm because it is definitely cold out there.
Yep. Thank you.
You bet. Appreciate it, Laura.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
You've been listening to the Running for Distance podcast. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode and that you'll join me next week as we journey down the trail for more adventures. Until then, have a blessed week. This is the Scarecrow Runner signing out.